All right, and we are back. A very somber episode of Chasing 69, a New York Jets podcast.
I was laughing as you started, and you just said somber.
Somber, and so that really sets the tone. Thank you, Teddy Pristash. In memoriam.
Sorry about that, everyone.
It is Wednesday, August 10th. Teddy alongside me. Make sure before we get into everything today, of course, this is going to be a homage or a funeral for Mekhi Becton's 2022 NFL season. But before we get into all of that, make sure to find us on Twitter at NYJ_chasing69, same as the YouTube page, Teddy at Teddy Huncho. I am at Blake Andrew Pace. Like I said, gonna have a lot of talk about Mekhi Becton and his recent injury that will sideline him for the entire 2022 season. Also going to get into some unofficial first depth chart for the New York Jets. And we're going to preview their upcoming game and what we're looking for against the Philadelphia Eagles this Friday, August 12th. And then, of course, we'll finish things off with Teddy's great segment, Who's Got You Hype? Teddy, how you doing?
Doing well. This week with the first preseason game coming up, I've been thinking about how whenever you have like your first scrimmage in football, you know, everyone's like, all the coaches are always saying, they're always saying you finally get to hit someone in a different jersey than yours or something like that, right. Something along those lines. So I just think, I bet you all the Jets have been saying that like all weekend, like can't wait to hit someone in a different jersey. Oh, yeah. That just kind of makes me laugh. But yeah, other than that, I'm doing good, man.
It's funny you even mentioned that. I mean, because the Jet, it happens in every training camp, but the Jets have gotten really feisty these last like 3 practices and a ton of fights breaking out. Mims was throwing some blows the other day. It's that point. You've been hitting the same guys for 2 weeks. That's what it is. It's like, right. You know, if you went and played an NFL game, you know, against like we're saying the Eagles this upcoming, if they did that 6-7 days in a row and it wasn't their teammate, the fights would be out of hand. So it's just the fact that all these days in a row they just keep lining up against the same guys and hitting them over the head. So Teddy, the big thing that we're obviously going to get into and start with today is Becton suffering his avulsion fracture of his right kneecap. Was seen limping around in the early stages of practice on Monday morning, August 8th.
Yep.
And leaves practice. Doesn't sound great at first. Then it sounds a little bit more positive about mid-afternoon. And by the end of the night, I think it was Connor that put something out on Twitter, but then confirmed the following morning, a fracture of his right kneecap will be out for the entire season. Take me through that entire process for you?
Yeah, I'm real sad. You know, it's just really unfortunate because, you know, and it's so different, like juxtaposed than what we did last week, you know. But last week we were just excited that he was out on the field practicing, you know, and that was like, we didn't know if he was gonna be healthy. We didn't know if he was still struggling with getting his weight in control or getting the discomfort out of his knee or whatever it was. So to see him out there practicing was just such a positive sign. We were all really happy. And then fast forward 1 week later, and you know, our biggest fear that we talked about all off season has come true. You know, Mekhi Becton is not going to be part of this 2022 New York Jets team in terms of actually being out on the field. And it just, I mean, it sucks, dude. It's, I don't know. It's everything we talked about. Like, we didn't want this to happen. And now he's gone, you know, and you just feel bad for him as a person. Like, after everything, you know, it's his 3rd year now, 2.5 years basically completely taken away from him without playing at all, you know. So it's just, it sucks. And especially like for this line, you know, I'm not like hitting the panic button. I still think it's a strong line, but it takes away kind of the upside that they had to be a top 5 offensive line in the league, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's the tweet that saw me the most, and I feel for Becton because say what you want about him taking his time to get into shape and all of the work that he put in leading up to camp. He still put the work in and he was ready to go day one. And, you know, there are people on Twitter, this like sick part of Twitter, that are taking their victory lap on him.
Yeah.
And that stuff I don't necessarily fuck with. And obviously it just sucks for some players are like this. The tweet that I saw that was the craziest is because of his rookie season being the COVID year, he has still yet to play a home football game in front of Jets fans, which is just crazy. For such a
Damn.
promising player
Damn.
taken in the first round, 3 years into his career now, completely washed. It'll be his fourth season when he tries to do it again. Obviously, the organization throws all their support for him, and how can you not? A really nice press conference from Robert Saleh after talking about the entire thing. For him himself, it sucks, but sometimes it's just so unlucky how players can be injury prone, and that's the problem of being somebody that's 350 plus pounds, is that you're far more likely to be on that side of things. I think in previous episodes when we've talked about it, it reminds me a lot of like a Zion Williamson in the NBA. You play at such a different size, that even if you just have the slightest little bit of bad injury luck, it turns into a much longer, much more difficult problem. So you worry, of course, about his legs being able to keep withstanding serious injuries like this, because it's not just a sprained ankle, or it's season-ending injuries again and again and again. So you hope that his legs can start to hold up. He still is so young. I mean, he's 23 years old, so like Saleh was saying, his days as a Jet, his career is far from over. It hasn't even begun yet. But you do hope that by some way that there's got to be some way to figure out what the balance is between the season and the off season to make sure that year round you are in a good place physically, because I do think that there is some problem trying to gain and lose weight in a short period like that. So I don't know where that comes into and what the focus really is, but there's got to be an approach now where you're really making sure there's utmost care put toward his body.
Yeah, I'm not a medical scientist, but I'm
Not?
very intrigued to just see like where he goes, like what is the next step, how does his recovery look? Do the
Yeah.
Jets keep him around? Is he able to get out on the field again? Because I mean, it's just we talk about it all the time, kind of the 50% hit rate of first rounders or whatever it is, and
Yep.
it's like this is something that happens. You draft a guy and he ends up kind of not working out for whatever reason, and in this case, it's injuries. And I don't think it spells the end of his career. 2.5 years when we're in it, and when it's like, oh wow, he hasn't played in 2.5 years. That feels like a long time. It really, like, it feels like this guy's never played. He's probably never gonna play. And a lot of times that's not how it works out. A lot of times these guys are able to get back out, and once they're able to stay healthy, then who knows what can happen. But it just like in the moment, it just sucks so bad for him to have to. I know what it's like to just like, you want to play the season and then you get injured and you don't get to play. Like, and you can just imagine. The only kind of thing I'm thinking about is like, I guess he gets to hang out with his kid who he just had a lot more now, which,
Yeah.
like,
Look at the
good for
positives.
him.
Yeah.
Maybe it's one of those everything happens for a reason types of things, but yeah, it sucks for him, and I think that it poses an issue for the Jets, and how they're going to address this, and what kind of the strategy is going to be now at this tackle position.
Right. And as we kind of transition into that, they make two minor signings. I don't, today, I don't think either of them are like, oh, yep, these are going to be our fixes at right tackle. They
Yeah.
bring in Caleb Beninock and Chris
Benanak.
Glazer, one of which has, both have on-field experience as offensive linemen. It's not like they're guys that have never seen a snap of live game before, but I don't think we look at either of them as the long-term answer at right tackle for this year. And obviously the big name that we have seen hanging out with the Jets the last week or so is Duane Brown. And I want to get into him in a little bit as well, too, along with some other trade candidates. But Teddy, because it's been so talked about, is there any, I don't want to say blame, but is there any responsibility that management should be looking at this now and saying, we did not prepare our tackle position enough this offseason, whether it be draft or free agency? I know they take Max Mitchell, but it was something that was talked about frequently, and we talked about it, and it goes as early as Ike Ekwonu as an offensive lineman at pick 4, or other tackle options that were available in free agency. I know they've brought in vets for visits. Riley Reef, who ended up signing with, I believe, the Bears or Steelers at some point. It was very recent, but obviously they still have options here. But when you just look at the offseason specifically, is there any part of it where you go, there should have been a better backup plan?
Yeah, I get that type of thinking, but not really. Especially like the Ike Ekwonu stuff, that the people who are kind of going around like touting that kind of just is like pisses me off, because it's just like, all right, like, yeah, we could have and would have looked really smart if we knew, but it's like we also we're taking the swing of upside of, oh, maybe we can have a great corner and a left tackle. My thing is with the offensive line is, my belief is that in order to have a good offensive line, you just need like 3 pretty good players, like 3 or 4, and then it can kind of fall in. And, it's like, obviously, would I love if the Jets had a top 5, top 10 offensive line? Yes. But do I care more about just being somewhere in the middle of the pack, somewhere
Rome wasn't built in a day.
The 13 to 16 area? Like, yeah. So I still definitely think that this is a very good offensive line. I think when you look at Elijah Tucker, who, we've both said very many times that we believe is going to be a Pro Bowler. And you look at the veterans on the left side with George Fant and Laken Tomlinson. And it's just like, I still am confident in those guys. The center, McGovern, is what it is. And then now we have Connor McDermott. Here we go again with these just random names that always are starting for the Jets. But, Connor McDermott stinks. Definitely. That's definitely a thing. But I do think that at the end of the day, if he has to be out there, or if one of these other signings is who's played before, or if it's Duane Brown, who's about to turn 37 and his birthday is August 30th, he's about to turn 37. His birthday is August 30th, because I looked up his age earlier.
Nice.
So I think that whatever we do, the offensive line can still end up being fine. So I don't super blame them for not having a better backup plan, because I don't think this kills the Jets from a outlook of this year perspective. I just do think it takes a step back of what their ceiling and what their upside could be as a team. Because when you have a guy like Mekhi Becton, who's maybe going to be a Pro Bowler and maybe going to, completely highway 77 his way to Breece Hall having 1,200 yards and all that stuff, I think that it kind of takes a step back for what the line can be, but I still am confident in the line as a whole and what the Jets' ability is to be able to run the ball and things like that, even without him.
Yeah, you definitely don't need 5 strong, you don't need 5 great offensive linemen to have a good offensive line. You do, as long as you've got, the most important part's probably taking care of the left side. Third most important, I would say, is right tackle, and having a center for your quarterback is solid. And then right guard's important, but I think it's probably in the pecking order of players, it's probably the least important. But to me, and the icky stuff, I don't mean it as in like they should have taken Ekwonu there. I think it was just so heavily discussed in the offseason, like, what is the backup plan at tackle? Right. And they just were like, we don't need it. We've got Becton coming back.
And I'm mostly targeting idiots, not you.
Yeah.
You just mentioned
thank you. Yes. Yeah. But when you take a look at the options, the one that, like you said, is the most obvious is Duane Brown. And right now he is someone that, kind of like with Riley Reef, has options. And the interesting part with Duane Brown is, unlike a Fant, has spent his entire 15-year career playing only left tackle. And there is some understanding that he wants to continue that this upcoming season, wherever he ends up signing. Now, the thing that gets interesting is, I was reading up about the Jets as well too today. Fant has a lot of respect for Duane Brown. They were teammates in Seattle. They spent time together, and they have a good understanding of each other. Would Fant then say take care of me financially. I'll move back over to the right side. Does that mess up the connection there? Because look, Duane Brown is still a free agent. So there is some understanding that he's not considered one of the best left tackles in the game now. Now you're bringing him in to fill a massive hole, because I do not believe the answer at the second tackle position is currently on this roster. If you gave me a season or a year and a half, I would say you could just slide in there Max Mitchell. I think he needs to really improve his run technique, and he's solid versus the pass, and he's not great, but he's just mechanically sound. I don't see the answer on the team currently. And it's not even just the fact of like, you don't need 5 good offensive linemen, but the reports have been the defensive line is destroying this offensive line in practice. And that was even back when Becton was still practicing. Like, they were just getting to Zach Wilson again and again and again and again. And it wasn't always his fault. It was sometimes just pockets that just collapsed instantly. And I've seen a lot of tweets where it's like, yeah, you know, they credited so-and-so with the sack, but there were 5 guys there. And so to me, the Jets, that can tell us great things about the Jets defensive line, but what it also tells me is going up against the Ravens and going up against the Browns and the Steelers and the Packers and the Patriots and the Bills, that's not going to cut it at all, especially when you want to be a run-oriented team and you need to protect your young quarterback. So I don't believe that the answer is there. Duane Brown makes it interesting because, okay, if the money is close enough, is he going to go to a place that's going to give him a left tackle job? Or are him and Fant going to work something out? So that's interesting. Where do you lean? Because Fant had a really good year at left tackle. Are you going to just go and mess that up and move to the other side? Like, where do you land with that?
This is an amazing thing to bring up in perspective, because I hadn't even thought about this. Because I don't love the idea of saying, when we had Mekhi Becton,
right,
who almost played at an all-pro level when we've seen him on the field, we're going to still commit to George Fant because he's good or better at left tackle. And then it would just be so weird for me for them to just say, all right, well, we'll bring in Duane Brown, Fant, you go back to right, because it's still just that question of, can Fant be nearly as good when he's playing right tackle? Because when he was playing right tackle in the league, he was nothing like he was last year playing left. Yeah. So I don't love that.
No.
But at the same time, I think if the Jets can cough up a little bit of money to get Duane Brown and, you know, just say, hey, do you want to play right tackle? I think maybe that would work. Or to answer your question, I do think that signing Duane Brown is the correct thing to do.
Yeah.
I just don't know what the right way to handle the left tackle and the right tackle. It's too much for me.
What it becomes at the end of the day is you need to have the best collection of 5 linemen out there, wherever they're playing. You know, you're also, you know, you're moving Elijah Vera Tucker, who was a Pro Bowl left guard last year, Pro Bowl level talent, I guess, or phenomenal rookie season, all rookie. You're moving him to a new position. You're bringing in a new left guard. Like, there are already so many changes. But at the end of the day, it's what's the best collection of 5 men we can put on the offensive line. And right now, if it means Fant moves to the right side just so Duane Brown can be the second tackle and not have to rely on one of these other guys, to me, that's where you go ahead and do it. I don't know what it will cost. I'm assuming I'm assuming money is not holding this thing up. I think it's just figuring out what are we actually going to do at our tackle position.
Yeah, I mean, the reports I've seen is basically that they have an offer, they've given it to him.
Yeah,
he can sign it whenever he wants, but it's just up to him at this point, you know. And so whatever they're going to pay him, it seems like they've given him that, and then we'll see what he can do elsewhere, and then maybe he comes back to the Jets and they'll improve that number. But at the end of the day, this just comes down to, does he want to sign with the Jets?
Exactly. And then, you know, outside of Duane Brown, because I think that's the one that makes the most sense, there are a few names that get thrown around as potential trade guys. You know, one of being, and I guess I want to get this one out first, so I'm going to jump around on our thing here, but Tevin Jenkins is a name that's popped up a bunch. Right tackle out of Oklahoma State, was taken with the 19th or 20th overall pick last year by the Chicago Bears. And really, not only just on-field play, but off-field play, it just did not work where even in a year and they change ownership, they change management, they change the coaching staff, they're saying this first round pick is not what we are trying to commit to in Chicago. To me, if you're a player that 1 year into your career, they are not willing to, commit to a first round pick that had just been taken when they have arguably one of the worst offensive lines in football as it is, that is not the guy that I want to go then and say he's a character fit that Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas have spent the last 2 years culminating in New York. Not that he's going to come in and just, make this team all negative Nancy's, but I would assume that if they draft players that love football and
Yeah,
the Tevin
I
Jenkins
totally
stuff
agree with
doesn't seem
you.
that way. Like that was just that's the name that got popped up first because he has been available for trade. But he doesn't go with anything I think the Jets are trying to build.
Yeah, and in terms of like I kind of think about all the Kayvon Thibodeau discussions of like, oh, is this guy not a good enough teammate for the Jets? Like blah blah blah. Like at the end of the day, I don't think Kayvon Thibodeau was like a bad dude. Like I think he's fine, but it's like I do think that like those type of guys, like the Jets have made it very clear what type of guys they want to bring in. And it's CJ Uzama and DJ Reed and Jordan Whitehead and these guys who are like leaders, George Fant,
Mm-hmm.
whereas all the stories about Tevin Jenkins, number one, don't line up with that. Number two, there's just no way there's no way they're gonna whatever Chicago would want from a 1 year removed first round pick. There's no way the Jets would give that. It's not like you're gonna get this guy for a conditional seventh or something.
No.
And he's done nothing to prove anything really. So
And has had health
yeah,
problems too. So it's like you're just going to bring in another tackle that can't stay healthy.
yeah, like
It was the name that was brought up as like a trade option. It's like that. I understand if you're looking for trade options, just you
right.
throw in the guy that's available, but there's no connection there that makes sense to me.
Right, exactly. This is like the name where people start going, "Oh, should we trade for this guy, trade for this guy?" When at the end of the day, like it's just so unrealistic.
Right. I will say you mentioned a name, and I'm just going to put this in here because it's early August, and he was talked about, and we talked about how much we loved him. Kayvon Thibodeau is
Oh
torching
yeah, yeah,
Giants
yeah,
practices, so just keep an eye on it. Just keep an eye
yeah.
on it.
Oh no, dude, I'm rooting for him.
Of course, it's one of those things where it was talked about for so long, and then
Right.
obviously the Jets had a different plan the entire time. But
It's nice that they didn't take another edge
yep,
because it
at
kind of
4.
makes it apples and oranges with
Right, it does.
comparing him and Sauce. They're not gonna their destinies aren't intertwined and things like that. They are a little,
Right.
but not really. So
yeah, but back to the tackle situation. The only other name that really makes sense is another former first round pick, and that was someone that Joe Douglas was part of the Eagles organization that drafted, and that's Andre Dillard. Not that he has untapped. I'm sure he's still a viable tackle option, but he's hasn't been able to carve out a role in Philadelphia as a starter. He's been on the bench. He's had a few appearances due to injuries, but still only 26 years old, has familiarity, was like, when Joe Douglas was VP of personnel there, like he was part of the organization that drafted Diller in the first round. So there's obviously something that they saw there that they liked. But he's 26. He's a mountain of a man, kind of has a body that's kind of built like a souped up Becton almost. Hasn't been able to find time in Philadelphia, so could be a trade option if say something falls south with Duane Brown. I don't know what the asking price for a backup tackle would be. I think that they're a few years removed from him being a first round pick, so it's not going to cost a ton, as where Tevin is 1 year removed from being a first. But just a name that if you're going to take a swing on a guy that's young and at one point showed potential, Dillard is a name that would make some good sense. And trade history between them, as well too recently, with Flacco and whatnot. Teams that trade together tend to always go back to each other first when there are offers on the table. I remember when the Colts traded for DeForest Buckner a couple years back, and then they also a month later were having conversations about Jimmy G. Like the teams that connect will always connect with each other because they know if you come to an agreement with a team, you usually view players and situations similarly. Whereas, for instance, we're in I liked being able to sneak this in here, but we're in the middle of our
great
Dynasty
job.
League rookie draft. And some of us see players at a similar page. It's easy to make trades if you're reasonable. Some people aren't. So it's kind of like that.
That's
so
true.
Philadelphia, Douglas spent his time there, and they've made deals over the last year or so. So just another name to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I'm about it.
Anything else with Becton? It's sad. It's unfortunate. They have
No,
they have to act kind of quick on something.
Yeah. I just
Can't wait.
struggle to see them making a trade. I mean, and maybe it's just because it's hard to know who they would actually target, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the best way to do is outside of Duane Brown. I feel like that's the strongest option they have, even though, because it's like the reason he's not getting picked up is because he's 37 years old. Like, no one kind of needs him. He's at the end of his career, but you put a guy like that out there who knows what he's doing. We sign him at the end of training camp, like I'm fine with that.
But to me, I view it as more as he's waiting for his right up. Like, I think he has multiple offers right now. I think he's just trying to figure out, like, say, who's a really good football team, the Chiefs, say their left tackle goes down with a season-ending injury. He's going to go to the Chiefs over the Jets.
Right. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying the reason that he's not signing with a team is because of like he's older and he wants to get his best offer, as opposed to if he was like 30, he probably wouldn't be available because he was a good player. Right. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. You're kind of right. I mean, it doesn't seem like the answer's on the team currently, but if they don't sign Duane Brown, I feel like Connor McDermott's going to be running out there week 1. We don't have to dive back into the whole conversation, but I guess I'll just leave you with that.
That's terrible. That's a great way to wrap things up, Teddy. We'll move on.
Pessimism for the boys.
Yeah, exactly. Can't have too much of that here in New York. We're going to move on now. The unofficial depth chart, just some conversations around this because it got released in preparation for the first preseason game. And a lot of it is what you would expect. There's a few things that were interesting. One of the first things, it's nice to see Sauce Gardner and Bryce Hall battling it out. Both listed as starters, both been playing well. Sauce
kind of a cop-out move by the Jets, list them both as starters. It's like if you want to say, I get that it is a true battle, like they're splitting reps, but
it is funny to see on the depth chart. It's hilarious.
Just put them at 2.
When you kind of look at it, I've pulled it up right here, and it's like, well, you're not going to start both of them.
It's like participation trophy.
I know. It's
funny. But yeah, everything I'm hearing about that is that Sauce is obviously showing up. He's showing why he was drafted at number 4, but Hall is stepping up to bat, and he's coming every day with a lot of intensity, and he's making plays on the field, and that's awesome. Just like competition. At the end of the day, I think Sauce is going to be the starter.
Yeah.
But I love to hear just guys getting better. I love that if something happens and we need Hall, we still believe in him. We still trust him. Like, I just love. You love position battles where it's like who's better as opposed to which guy's less
which guy
bad.
Do we have to start? No, yeah, they're getting the most out of each other. And for Hall, he spent the last few years earning that starting spot. And then obviously, the Jets come in and they sign a guy in free agency and they draft a guy at 4. And so for him, that's got to piss him off a little bit, fire him up. And obviously it's going to get the best out of everybody in that room. For a position group, last year, 2 years ago, and you can say that with a lot of position groups for the Jets, but it was just abysmal. It was like, who are we starting out here? It's like, who are we starting out at cornerback? So that
the
one
turnaround is.
It's nice to start to see. Yeah, exactly.
For this position group specifically,
right?
It feels good.
Definitely. And then as you move forward into the defense, a few things here. Linebacker, Quan listed with the second team. I sincerely doubt that will be the case a few weeks from now. I think it's also kind of a, Marcel Harris has been here from the start of camp, and Quan was here soon enough. He came in a little bit late. He's been fantastic in camp though. So we're going to get into what we're looking for versus the Eagles. Unofficial depth chart as we go toward game 1. Sure, have him on the second team. I don't want to see him on the football field. But what did you take anything else away from that with Harris being there? Or are you like buying stock now? Or
I think that Marcel Harris is a better player than I just think he's a better player than maybe we give him credit for. Like, I wouldn't hate if Marcel Harris started over like Quincy Williams, like I think Marcel Harris is an all right player. But so I just thought it was interesting that like this is how they kind of put it out with CJ and Quincy and Marcel Harris as the three starters, and then Quan behind Marcel. I totally agree with you that I think that Quan's going to be the starter, but it's just it kind of stood out to me that it wasn't like Nasruddin or the other guy.
That it was Harris over the others is what you're
Sherwood.
saying.
Jamie
okay,
and Sherwood.
gotcha.
Right.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, and Quincy is one of those guys where it depends on the package they're going to be in, and you're going to swap out guys in those situations. But yeah, nothing too crazy at the linebacker room there. I think it's more so kind of like with a guy that you bring in as a rookie, where it's like this is going to be yours, but we're going to spend some time getting everybody accustomed to it, I guess. Because I would assume day one.
Well, yeah, and I think a lot of people do. A lot of people kind of are like, "Oh, Quan is washed." Like Quan was not washed last year. Like he was very good, or exactly. Good. I mean,
when healthy,
elite,
he's not. Yeah, exactly. He's not what he was in San Francisco with Saleh. But he is a solid starting linebacker when he's out there on the field.
Yeah.
The other thing as we move forward through this and go to the defensive line, we have our front line there, and it's three names that we expected to see there. You've got Carl Lawson and John Franklin Myers at edge, which is what they've said they're going to be doing on first and second down run situations. Quinnen Williams there on the interior. And then the name that gets the start there next to him is Solomon Thomas, which, I guess when we've spoken about him was more of like a smooth pass rushing interior defensive lineman, where I wondered about his plurality if you're going to have John Franklin Myers on the inside anyways. But to see him out there, I think that there's some hope now that he can provide, value first through third down.
Yeah, I think Robert Saleh had an interesting quote, which I think it's interesting because we've talked a lot about the inside D linemen and kind of the lack of like run stuffers,
big fuckers.
and guys who can protect against run. And I just think Robert Saleh, he had an interesting quote, and he basically just said like the way we run our defense, we're not looking for anyone to be labeled like a run stopper. We just want guys who can play the three technique and like get off the ball quickly, basically, and I think he said like cause movement or something like that. But so I just think that's like interesting insight into kind of how they built out this team and why it kind of seems like, oh, none of these guys are really that kind of prototypical, like big inside, just run stopper. Like I'm huge, I'm just going to stop you. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, this D line has been something that I'm very interested to see how it all falls out. I'm very interested to see who's kind of on the chopping block come the end of camp, which guys aren't going to be around. Yeah. But so to see Solomon Thomas's name, like is that who we had projected?
No,
I don't think so.
We kept him around. I think we said we projected him as a depth piece. We didn't have him as a starter, right. But we said it was either, I can actually just pull it up.
I think it was like
right here. Was it 2 weeks ago we were doing that? Yeah, it was. So we both said that, if I can get to it, dead air.
I love dead air.
We both said Nathan Shepard, odd man out.
Right, but who did we say would start?
Oh, starting, we had Sheldon Rankins.
That's what I thought. Yeah. So I mean, that's just interesting. Like these unofficial depth charts, I can't remember if we said this, but
we're also a month. Yeah, we're a month away from it.
They're not always accurate, but it's just, it's interesting. I'd love if Solomon Thomas, former third round pick or third overall pick could get back some of his mojo and be pretty awesome. So that would be cool with me.
He found something in Vegas, when he switched from edge to more of a three tech, and it was more so in passing situations. So it will be interesting, but he's got a big fucker next to him in Quinnen. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, but that was a surprise just considering, for the most part, a lot of these new guys and a lot of these rookies are a little bit further back on the depth chart, but he's a free agent signing that was relatively cheap. And for what it's worth is listed as a starter on the first unofficial depth chart. The other thing here, kind of going into what I was just saying, two notes. some of these rookies, really far back. And I love the idea of it, but I don't, because it's like we know where these guys are going to end up
Jermaine
being.
Johnson and Brees Hall are both listed as the third string at their respective positions. Jermaine, third string edge, Brees Hall, third string running back. What I'm intrigued by, because when I saw Jermaine, I wasn't shocked, right? Because this D line has a lot of pieces. There's going to be a lot of rotation. And so listing him at the third spot, like, fine. But with Brees Hall, I mean, I'm not at practice every day, and we don't get to watch a whole ton of like clips of the plays they run. But I would assume Brees Hall is getting in his work with the first team offense pretty regularly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So it's just funny that the Jets will be practicing every day, definitely including him in their first team, like first string offense, and then are going to release a depth chart and be like, oh yeah, but he's third, Michael Carter's first, and I think Tevin Coleman was listed at second, which
it was Coleman,
which is so interesting because we have Zonovan Knight, the undrafted free agent who everyone's thinking is gonna. Did I say the wrong name?
No, I was just like, I've always thought at the end of the day, the third string running back, I thought the entire like, I know he came out strong and there are other guys in the mix. I always just was like, they're going to keep Tevin Coleman around just because he's literally followed with this offense as like a coach.
I agree, but the question mark is there. So
sure.
It's just still,
he's old.
It's
he's
just
not
funny. Like,
too much.
What if at the end of the day, this first depth chart and the second string guy doesn't even make the team? It would just be kind of funny. I think it's more likely both of them make the team than Tevin Coleman get cut.
You would think they would keep
around the other guy first if he can be a special teams guy and contribute on kickoff and punt return and stuff like that. But yeah, it's funny to me that like Brees Hall's going out there practice every day, running with the ones, and then third.
Because like you were saying with the Jermaine one, sure, Vinny Curry has been around the block. And Carl Lawson is the starter there too in that spot. It's not like Michael Carter, and I love Michael Carter. Actually, I could you imagine, just timeout real quick. Teddy drafted Brees Hall 1-1 in our dynasty football league, and then
yes, I did.
Later in the draft, I traded away Michael Carter as some package for a second round pick. How hilarious would it be? if just he's taken the one at the beginning of the regular season, like that would be hilarious. It's not going to happen.
Not make me happy.
It's not going to happen. But that one was just weird because it's not like Michael Carter is an established vet.
Right.
He had one good season. Coleman is at this point he's washed. He's at that point of his career where he is. So that one I don't get the point of, because we know that Brees Hall is going to be starting, and he's going to be the number one running back. It's not. Football can be so dumb sometime where it's like earn your spot, and it's like, well, I've earned it because you guys give me the reps in practice that show me that I've earned it. So now this piece of paper tells me that I'm not earning it.
Right. Well, I've also heard stories about the unofficial depth charts where like it'll just be like some random assistant coach is just like, hey, put this unofficial depth chart together and then give it to it to the social team or whatever. Like,
yeah.
So maybe that's why it's as stupid as it is. But I don't know. Brees Hall is going to be the number one. I took him 101. We're going all the way, baby.
And I guess in the same sense to say that, okay. In the same sense, you've got Garrett Wilson back there as wide receiver 4, which I guess when you look at the alignment, you've got Braxton in the slot. I guess you're just going to give him that number one slot, but he's listed there at wide receiver there, and you've got Garrett Wilson kind of behind Elijah Moore as the wide receiver 4.
Right. They have Corey Davis as the other starter.
They have Corey Davis and Elijah on the outside, Braxton as the slot.
Yeah.
It's the same stuff. It's the young guys are in the roles.
I mean, that one I'm a little more interested in, because if the top 3 are going to be Davis, Moore, and Wilson, I would like to know who they're going to put in the slot, if they're going to move more Elijah back in there, or if they feel like Garrett or Davis could run that role. But I mean, we've talked about it. At the end of the day, I think a majority of the sets we're in are going to be 2 wide receiver sets, and I think that they're just going to kind of be rotating guys. So So I
That
don't
is
think
going to be interesting to
anyone's going to
see.
be. I don't think anyone's going to be stuck playing only in the slot or only on the outside. I think everyone's going to
Right.
kind of line up everywhere. But yeah, I guess I'm glad you did mention this, because seeing how these wide receivers fall out in year one is a very interesting question. Like does Garrett Wilson kind of bully his way to like, you got to keep me on the field, or does it take him a little bit more time to get there? So yeah, something to watch in this preseason game that is happening on Friday, 2 days from when you're listening to this podcast. Let's fucking go. I'm amped.
Exactly. And as we transition into that preseason game, Teddy, we will both not be watching it live.
Yeah, I I'm like hoping
Oh,
I
okay.
can, but I just like have
You're going
stuff
to
going
try
on. I'm
to.
not gonna like not do things so I can like sit and watch the game, but I'll watch it
Yeah.
definitely.
I'm
But
my plans, as we talked about, that's gonna be my birthday on Friday, so I am doing a little staycation
oh,
in
the birthday
Nashville.
boy.
Yeah, I got a little
Oh, you're not
staycation
okay.
planned.
Staying
I,
in
I'm
Nashville.
coming to Nashville. I'm coming to New York Saturday morning, but I was able to get a nice hotel. Gonna do a nice massage. Gonna hang by the pool,
Wow,
and then
Blake.
at night, I'm going to see the Red Hot Chili Peppers. So
Wow, very
gonna
cool,
be
very
a
cool.
really fun day.
Happy
I'm
early
excited
birthday.
for it.
Everyone
Thank
send
you.
Blake a DM.
I'm turning 21. I'm 21.
21.
21. But Teddy, as we go and talk about this preseason game, we're kind of just going to go over, and I think we can do this by just going back and forth on things that we are looking for in our first preseason game here with the Jets as they take on the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, so just to set
Yeah.
the scene, game's on Friday, 7:30 p.m. I'm not sure what channel it's on, but figure that out. And yeah, I mean, this is, it's the beginning of like the blue ball season of football, but we get to watch the New York Jets out against a team, players in a different color jersey, as I said at the beginning of
Get to
this
hit
show.
someone.
And it's not the start. There's still a long way, but man, is it going to feel good to see those guys out there in their game uniforms, playing against different guys. It's going to be awesome. I'm excited, even though it's just a preseason game and I'll be bored within 20 minutes.
But what I like about it now is, and like I said, I'm going to watch the game when I fly. What I'm going to do is if it's available on Game Pass by then, I'm going to have it on my iPad. So when I'm flying home from New York, coming back to Nashville, I'll be able to watch it.
There's a lot to
what I
look
at
for.
least like about, well, that's the thing is like now that we do this, there's actually stuff that we can watch the preseason game and take away from and go kind of communicate. So I'm going to watch. I haven't watched preseason football in 8-9 years. I've told Teddy this. I don't know if I've said it on the show before. I don't watch it. It means nothing to me and I hate it. And as we get into it, there's going to be some things that I'm looking for that I'm actually not looking for. So it's going to be fun to at least though kind of have a reason beyond, blue balls football season to watch a game.
Yeah,
So
it's always
Teddy,
fun.
Yeah, what were you saying?
No, I was just saying it's always fun to see the guys who aren't going to play a lot in the season, but they're kind of like the training camp heroes, and you get to see them and see which guys, are going to have their Hard Knocks arc or One Jets Drive arc or whatever you may call it these days.
Right, exactly.
But yeah.
Oh, cool. All right, well, Teddy, things that we're looking for. Do you want to just kind of toss these back and forth here?
Yeah, I mean, what's your biggest one? Like, what do you think? What are you most excited to see when you think of okay, the Jets are going to play their first preseason game? What am I thinking about?
So I'm going to preface this with, we know that we are going to say, and you mentioned this before the show started, that it is expected starters that are 100% healthy, no lingering issues, are going to be playing 2 series, potentially a first quarter.
About a quarter.
However long that takes. So we are going to see the starters out there. Now, the thing that I would want to see the most is none of that. I am more so of the approach of we ease into the preseason games, we ease into the regular season, because, for a lot of players, it's not like everybody is always staying in football shape from the day the season is over. A lot of people are slowly getting themselves back into football shape. And if you rush those things too often, that's where we get a lot of unfortunate injuries. And the number one thing that I want is no injuries. And so to me, when I look at the first preseason game, I don't want to see anybody. I really do not. But since we are going to, the thing that I am most looking forward to is how this offensive line moves. Especially now with the Becton injury, and Philadelphia, man, they got a fucking difficult defensive line if you want to talk about some beefy MFers up there. And I don't know who is necessarily playing. I haven't seen who the Eagles are planning to sit.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything either.
But I know at the very least that they've got a deep defensive line and some big fuckers up there. So in terms of what I want to see, I want to see how this pocket can hold up guys. And you know, everybody's going to be looking at right tackle, deservingly so, because they know that there's no great option there right now. But I'm looking at the left side, and if Fant's not going to be there, it's one thing. So you're not going to be able to pay much attention. But what Lake and Tomlinson can provide, what AVT can provide at guard, whatever version we get of the offensive line, I just want to see it hold up for those first few series. And I'm expecting we're going to have backup tackles in there anyways. So really, it's going to be those three in the middle. And whoever is available back there. But I'm looking forward to seeing how the offensive line holds up against a team that's not the Jets, because it's going to help me figure out, okay, what's the situation? Is the Jets D line filthy, or is the Jets offensive line still a really big problem?
I think this is a great example of you know, like me being a Jets fan and you just being, for all intents and purposes, like an analyst of the team, whereas I am like a fan of the team.
Mm-hmm.
Because first thing you're thinking of is easily the probably most important football question that we have of this team right now, which is what's going on at right tackle. Mekhi Becton's gone. How's everyone's going to look? When I think about this game, what's the thing I'm most excited for? And it's these rookies.
Yeah.
You know, it's seeing these guys, Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnson, Breece Hall, seeing these guys in their game uniforms, you know, whether it's 2 series, like I cannot wait. And I'll pick one. It's all of them.
Okay.
I'm very excited to see them all. The main guy I'm excited to see has got to be Breece Hall, because of the recent Dynasty 101 pick.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, man, I'm excited. You're frozen on my end, buddy.
I'm frozen on your end?
Yeah. Am I frozen on your end?
No, I can you hear me though?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Then
well, let's just keep it rolling.
We'll keep it rolling. If you can hear me, fine. Yeah. Maybe at some point the screen will work itself out. Nice. I'm back. Look at that. We killed that. We don't even have to cut.
The producers figure that out. Yeah.
Yep.
Good job, boys.
Yeah. Thanks, Hank. So
but yeah, no, I mean, I totally am in line with your thinking. But then, you know, on the flip side, there's so much to be excited for with these young guys. So I can't wait.
Yeah, of course. I that's what you should be excited about. If I flipped on the Colts game, I'm not going to be looking at how Matt Pryor is at left tackle now, or who we've filled in at right guard. I want to see Alec Pierce. I want to see, you know, Deo Obendago. I want to see, you know, some of the new guys, Stephon Gilmore. Like, there's so many new pieces to a team where you're like, I want to see how everybody looks, because if they look great, then that's all you need to hold on to until week 1. You know, one great run from Breece Hall in this first preseason game is going to have you fired up about his potential, like a nice breakaway 75-yard touchdown. Like that would just get you amped for a month.
I mean, yeah, that would be ideal. I'll take like a 12-yard run.
Yeah.
I would just watch that on repeat
exactly.
all day.
Well, that was the thing. Who was the Hall of Fame game again? I didn't watch it. Who was it? It was
Jaguars Raiders.
And it was the highlight that I saw was like, oh, Zamir White had a 14-yard run in the preseason game, and it's like,
and then like
cool.
Like Trayvon Walker, you know, who's number 1 overall pick. Obviously, everyone has every right to be excited to see him, and he gets a sack, you know, and I think he had a couple other like QB pressures. And so, you know, that's 3 plays. I didn't watch every play super intently, but I remember those plays. And it's just funny that, like, I couldn't tell you how Trayvon Walker played the rest of the game, but I know that those 3 plays, he looked great, you know, and that's the story that everyone runs with.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
All right, man. What's the next thing you're caring about? What are you
Uh,
excited to see?
Zach Wilson. To me, and it kind of goes hand in hand with the offensive line where, I think one of his biggest problems was being able to handle pressure in his rookie season. And this is me flipping it from the fun parts to the not fun parts and like what I need to see from Zach Wilson in these first few series. If he's going to have guys breathing down his neck, I want to see how he's able to and what he's learned in the last year to adjust to handling pressure, because there were some times where you are just holding onto that ball way too long. You're taking unnecessary hits. And it's the preseason. It's going to be a little bit lighter, and they're probably not going to put him in that many situations where he's going to get hit. But if he is under pressure, I want to see a poised Zach Wilson understand that I can throw this thing out of bounds, especially because it's the first week of the preseason and this game means absolutely nothing. I just want to see a more poised Zach Wilson under pressure. I want to see a better understanding of the offense, quicker reads, being able to throw guys open on the easy passes. That was something I feel like on an easy slant, he would just be a little bit behind guys on, not hitting them in stride, not hitting him in their hands. So, we're not going to get a ton of him, but what I want to see is just, I guess, crispness. It doesn't need to be these, dancing around, evading pressure and launching a bomb for 70 yards. I want to just see calm, cool, collected Zach just doing the easy part of the job of being a quarterback.
Yeah, I like the way you finished that. I think that's probably the best way to describe it is you don't need to see anything crazy, but you just want to at least see, him looking comfortable, him knowing what he's doing. It's an interesting, like, I don't, the emotional dynamics of like watching your starting quarterback in preseason or starting offense as a whole in preseason is like really, it's always kind of been a battle for me because it's just like they're going to play 2 series, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if those 2 series don't look good,
3 and out,
that sucks, And it's like, you hope, it doesn't really mean anything. It's the first 2 series of preseason. It's not the end of the world. But when you're only going to get to see your first team offense go against another team for 2 series, the pressure is on to show something. Like go have a touchdown drive, have 2, score twice. Don't leave the field with 0 points. And so it's like, I don't think that's needed. I don't think that's the end all be all, like this will show if they're good or not.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm just thinking of like, what do I want to see? What I'd like to see is, 2 sustained drives and, at least 1 being a scoring drive, if not both. And that kind of comes down to like, how is Zach Wilson going to run this offense? How is he going to handle these plays that they're throwing at him and stuff like that? So, I definitely agree. I'm going to be watching him, even though it's only those 2 series. Those are going to be like the 2 series
it could be over like
watch
that
the most,
especially when they're a team
Hopefully
that's
not.
probably trying to integrate a good run offense. Like, how many opportunities is he going to get to throw the football? But
it could easily be run, incompletion, punt. And punt. It's like, God,
you do that twice,
and
then it's Joe Flacco time or Mike White season. We know he can. To me, once I know a quarterback can do the special stuff, I don't need to see the special stuff again. What I want to see, and that's kind of guys in their development, like a Josh Allen, being able to see him, because he had for as many dumb plays as he had early in his career, and you could say the same about Mahomes and some of these other greats, is it's like they can do the amazing stuff. Once you see that, they've got that. I want to see what they can do on these short intermediate throws, and the precision and the consistency and the accuracy.
Moving the ball, getting first downs.
Zach Wilson can do the special stuff. I want to see him understand how to move a football, not slowly down the field, but methodically. So that's to me the next stage of his development, and something that you're right. We're probably not going to be able to get to see that much of, especially if it's just going to be 2 series, and we're also really trying to integrate a run offense here. But something that I do want to try and get at least a few takeaways from in his game.
Definitely.
So what do you got next? What's got you? What you looking
next thing
to?
I'm really excited to look for is really watching these linebackers. I think I might be like the Jets fan who cares the most about the linebackers.
I think you might,
because I talk about them like every week, but I'm so intrigued. I think CJ Mosley is going to be fine. but I'm so intrigued to see like what can Quincy Williams be? Is he going to be the starter all year? Are we going to have to be rotating him in and out? Like what's going to happen there? How's Marcel Harris going to look if Quan Alexander does play, which I kind of don't think he will, but if he does play, how's he going to look? These young guys in Jamie Sherwood and Hamza Nasruddin, how do they look? I just, it's such an intriguing position to me because I feel like we don't have the talent that we need there. So I can't wait to just watch these guys and see, if, like Quincy Williams is a perfect guy who it wasn't the preseason, but when you first started seeing him, he just was like making plays and sticking off the screen. And while maybe every other play wasn't the best, it's not like he's some elite guy, but he's a guy who kind of jumps off the screen at you and you say, wow, this guy can at least play. And so I'd like to get some type of a feel for these other guys and see if anyone else can make at least that type of impression, if not more. So yeah, I mean, Quan probably not playing, right?
I would assume not with
I feel like
just
he's been kind of
age,
in and out of
health.
practice and
Yeah. And they're slow rolling him to get him ready for the season. Yeah, I would assume so as well. I agree with you. It's like I said, we talked about it last week. I don't think it's the most important position on a defense anymore, but you still need guys out there and you need serviceable guys. So who is going to step up and take that opportunity? So that's definitely something to look forward to. My last two things, one of them was a joke. How does Andre Dillard look? That was one I was just like, well, he's going to be playing for the
just
Eagles.
Talked about him.
So, and he's going to probably get some reps since he's in that backup unit. Looks good. Maybe, are they playing? Where are they playing? It's not a.
They
a
are
long
playing
flight.
at Lincoln Financial Field in
Okay,
Philadelphia.
so you take him on the plane back home when everything's all said and done.
Yeah.
He
Hey,
leaves the game a member of the New York Jets. That was my joke one. The other one is kind of like what you were saying. Some of these fringe guys that could be into, potentially larger roles. And, I take a look at the safety position and, right now, as we were talking about with the unofficial depth chart, it's got what we probably thought was going to be there. LaMarcus Joyner, Jordan Whitehead at both safety spots. But then you've got these four guys behind. And it's like, if you are going to be relied on, say LaMarcus Joyner doesn't have it, or say another injury comes up, Pinnock, Davis, Riley, Parks, who is really going to carve out their opportunity there out of those four guys? I know they've got a fifth on the chart, Tony Adams as well, too. He's really the one guy that's considered fourth team, so not really much of him, but more so the other four in particular. But guys like that, I do want to see, just because, I don't think he is going to. There are other guys that had the pecking order, but as we go back to the offensive line a little bit, I do want to see how Max Mitchell looks, specifically in the run game, and I think he is a very sound, sturdy pass protector, but he is abysmal in the run game. I want to see what he's worked on in his time since college, since his college film, and what the Jets have been able to work on with him. So if he can show a little bit in the run game, where it's like, hey, maybe we do have a diamond in the rough. We're not this season, but a year and a half or two down the road, we've got a guy that can fill in as a starting tackle. Fringe guys like that, I'm just like keeping an eye on, because their roles may become more important than we even realize, specifically at safety. And I, it hopefully never the case at tackle, but you never know. McDermott did get banged up a little bit earlier in a few practices ago. So it's like,
no, and
never know who's going to be needed
Max
to step
Mitchell
up.
Yeah, man, Max Mitchell is like the question mark, right? I mean, he's a rookie. So end of the day, I mean, I agree. Correct me if I'm wrong. Have the Jets said that their plan with him is to kind of not really play him this year and move on, or is that just kind of what we think is going to happen?
That's my
I mean, that's
understanding
my
of him as a prospect
as well.
Is he is so. It's size, it's athleticism. He is more so just a statue, but he's a statue with good technique, where he's not going to move guys in the run game. He doesn't have the upper body for that yet. They really, to me, the slow play is building up his strength and his grounding and his footwork. He is so technically sound. He struggled against lower level collegiate linemen, where in the NFL, I mean, he would get torched in the run game, run over.
Yeah, and I mean, whether he plays this year or not, I think the point is just, at the end of the day, he's a question mark, and maybe he does become the answer at right tackle for this team, and maybe he does even right, exactly. And it's just, that's how we are going to be engaged with these preseason games, as we were talking about at the top of this, but it's like, oh, it's the third quarter and the third, fourth strings are in, but guess what? I want to see how Max Mitchell's doing. So
Yep.
I mean, it's awesome. Kind of in a similar vein, the last thing I had was just, Jeremy Rucker, the third tight end that we took from Ohio State. I'm just excited to see if they kind of show any of like him playing fullback, if they run any of that, if they, obviously they'll probably still have Bawden out there running that role. But I would like to see if they're going to at least try Rucker out. I think if we don't see it, it's possible they just don't want to show it for the season. But I'm very intrigued with how that kind of whole situation is going to work out because, at the end of the day, you might not always want to have 3 tight ends on your roster. I guess tight ends at the end of the day, they are pretty effective on special teams. So maybe 3 tight ends isn't that out of this world.
I think 3 tight ends is very, very reasonable.
Normal. Yeah. So Rucker will probably just be the third tight end and maybe he is able to get on the field in some of those tight end roles because of how much we're going to be running 2 tight end and 3 tight end sets. But I would really just like to see if they're going to be able to utilize him at this fullback-ish position. That kind of like Y H-back in the backfield, right. And just kind of see how that goes. So yeah, that's probably like the smallest thing I'm looking for, but yeah, still, it's nice to kind of see a guy who probably we're not going to see a ton of throughout the year.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yep. So anything else with the preseason game? Is there anything?
Only other thing I wanted to do was just talk about like, we're playing the Eagles. Are there any players on the Eagles that I mean, I know you already mentioned Andre Dillard.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else that just kind of like, oh, I'm kind of excited to see, I'll maybe let you mull it over, but yeah. What I kind of came up with, number one, Gardner Minshew's the backup, which is just kind of fun because like he'll probably play a decent amount of the game. And then the only other thing I had were the 2 rookies, Jordan Davis, who is going to be wearing number 90.
Big fucker.
All reports are saying he's been awesome in camp. I think the Eagles took him at like 15 or 16 in the draft.
Yep.
I'm just excited to see kind of what he looks like. And then they drafted Nakobe Dean, the linebacker. I'm not sure. I don't have his jersey number, but that'll just be, kind of interesting because he was a guy that a lot of Jets fans, including myself, wanted to take early in that second round, and he ended up dropping a lot. So
his story was so crazy because became so many red flags about his health, and then afterwards he was like, I'm fine, and he's been fully healthy. So it's interesting the way things work out like that. No, all great mentions. I love Gardner Minshew. There was a point in the offseason before I
didn't know that.
Oh, before Matt Ryan, I knew Matt Ryan was available. I was like, I'd rather trade a 7th round pick for Gardner Minshew than a 2nd round pick for Jimmy G. Like, to me, Gardner Minshew is one of those guys that can just step in and be fine. He can, like,
Who do you like better
season.
Who do you like better, him or Mitch Trubisky?
As a person or a player?
No. Like, who would you rather play quarterback for your team?
I'm buying into Mitch, so that's the tough part here. So I do err.
That's why I asked this question. I know you're a Mitch type of guy.
I'm gonna side with Trubisky. I think he can provide a little bit more athletically, but as a thrower, as just like a throwing quarterback, I would prefer Gardner Minshew's arm.
Interesting.
That's a cop-out answer where I gave you a reason not to take each, but
for both. Yeah.
But that's a good argument.
It's not like Minshew can't run around out there. Yeah.
No, he can. He's just Mitch is a shifty, athletic, good running quarterback.
Yeah. He's deceptively. He doesn't look like he would be that athletic, but he is.
Let me take a look if there's any specific. The first names. I mean, they've got I've heard so much about the connection between AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts to start off training camp that things have just been gelling perfectly with them. So that's definitely something.
I don't think AJ Brown will play.
So that's the other part. I don't know who.
And I don't think Hurts will play either. Sirianni. The only thing I saw that is out is that Sirianni said we haven't made that plan yet. We don't have to decide that until Friday.
I love
So
Sirianni.
it's Tuesday.
Sirianni was a Colts guy. He was our OC before he got that job. So I love him. Just taking a look through the roster, it's not a ton of names that I'm like super excited to see. If Carson Strong is playing, if he gets any snaps in at quarterback, I would be
I'm
excited to
sure he
see him.
will. I'm sure he
Nevada
will.
guy who, people considered in this tier of maybe potentially a good quarterback to take in this draft, but the injury history is like downright scary. His legs are paper. Jimmy Moreland, JMU Duke, there in
Oh
Philly
yeah,
at cornerback. He's shopped around a
cornerback.
few places with the Washington Commanders. Then he went to Houston, so he's up there as well too. There's no other real names that I can say I'm super looking for it. I think you hit on the big ones with the two rookies. A guy I've always thought that never really panned out to his potential was Derek Barnett, and of course he's listed in as a backup edge rusher. He was a first round pick back in 2019. But yeah, outside of that, I mean, it's a big physical defensive line that's going to be fun to watch. They've got a good offensive line too that's getting a little bit older. I guess I'd say Cam Jurgens, because also recently Jason Kelsey got injured at center a little bit, and he was obviously drafted to one day be the Jason Kelsey replacement. So he's another rookie I'll throw in there as a guy like I'm interested to see, because there have been some centers that have come out of recent drafts and instantly been one of the best at
Oh
their
yeah,
positions. Like Creed
yeah.
Humphrey, people say Creed Humphrey in 2 seasons is already the best center in the league, and it's crazy how quick some of these interior guys can ascend to that status. So he's another guy I'd throw in there, but just looking at it, I mean, you could say the Denzel Mims of the Eagles to a even worse
Yeah, I was
extent.
gonna bring that up
Yeah,
with
Jalen
Jalen
Rager.
Rager,
Yeah,
just because I was gonna say something. Well, here we go again. We're talking about Denzel Mims.
I was gonna
It's
find a way to sneak it in, anyways.
it's hilarious to me, just like this podcast. We're always working in Denzel Mims, like, because obviously it's because of the draft pedigree. It's because he's a second round pick, but the way that the fans and the beat reporters just like care so much about like, where is Denzel Mims? Because we've talked about it. Even if Denzel Mims is great, his peak on this roster is wide receiver 5. Like, he's not gonna be above either of the young guys. He's not going to be above Corey Davis, who's making 15 million or 12 million a year. He's not going to be over Braxton Berrios, who just got a new deal and is going to be used. So it's like, the beat reporters know that his best option is like 5th string, but they still care enough, and they know that we care enough to continue asking about him. And everything's been positive. It's not the same type of stuff it was last year. But I was thinking about how I was like, it's crazy that like we just care so much about Denzel Mims when the rest of the NFL probably doesn't. And that's kind of how the Eagles
At
are with Jalen
all.
Rager, except I think that more people care about Jalen Rager than care about Denzel Mims.
But that's because Rager was taking a pick before Justin
Exactly.
Jefferson,
Just
who's
more
like,
people know him. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. You know what Rager is that Mims isn't? Starting punt and kick returner. So he's got a leg up on him there. So
Yeah. Good for him. That's
but
kind of cool.
also listed as wide receiver 5 on their first unofficial depth chart. So
That's
a lot
tough.
of similarities there. Teddy, that's really all that I've got for this preseason game. Obviously, we'll be able to recap it next week. The only last thing that I think we could do to finish things off here is who's got you hyped week 2. We started with the negative. We got our soggy sorrows out of the way with Becton. Finish on a high note this past week. Who's got you hyped?
Yeah. I don't know if like there was too much hype week 1, but week 2 felt a lot less hypeful.
Yeah.
Maybe I got too excited for too many guys last week, but obviously
Hmm.
with this Mekhi Becton news, I was just a little sad when I was trying to figure out who had me hyped. So I wasn't sure, but I wanted to go with Robert Saleh just because you kind of touched on it earlier, but the way he kind of like went out of his way to make a statement about Mekhi, back him up, kind of say that they're there for him, they support him, they think he was doing all the right stuff. And at the end of the day, they feel bad, and he was kind of taking shots at fans who wanted to just like throw him to the curb. And I just thought that was awesome. Just in general, even outside of that, Robert Saleh just continuously shows me that, like, at least from a optics and like personality and knowing what the right things to say are. He knows exactly what to say, and he does things the right way, in my opinion. So yeah, I just love that. He got me hyped.
He's one of those guys that you could put him here every single week because he's one of those coaches, kind of like a Dan Campbell, or they love the game so much. And even Sean McVay to an extent where their passion, you can just feel it every single day. So he deserves like a weekly award for who's got you hyped. I was going to go quarterback here because I did want to give Zach some credit for what sounded to be a much improved second week here. I'm going to go a little bit outside of that though. Tyler Conklin, he just keeps showing off these highlight plays and he's a freak athlete. And when we've talked about players that can, really, make come into their own with the Jets, he's shown flashes before, but he's someone that, whether it's, tight window throws or a tight window catches or contested catches, like he is making plays out there where, I know that Uzoma is the number one guy, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if Conklin is at the end of the day being looked at as, the high upside number one tight end connection with Zach, especially when it comes to the red zone and the end zone. So he's a guy that I think that we're starting to see a lot of consistent good practices from where there's great catches and he's putting the work in the passing game. So he's going to get my who's got me hyped for week 2.
Love it. I love Tyler Conklin. Can't wait to see what he's got.
Yep, exactly. Awesome, Teddy. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. Yeah, go right ahead.
This has been the most exciting end of an episode, in my opinion, because as we're wrapping up, it's like the next time we'll talk to these guys, the Jets will have played a game.
We've seen football. We've seen how all these guys look. Everything that we just talked about that we're excited to see. It's going to be a great time, and we're going to get into that. We've got an AFC East preview coming up as well, too. We'll obviously get into some big season predictions, all that as we approach the season. I mean, Teddy, I think like day-wise, we're officially just about a month away. So yeah, from the, Bills Rams Thursday Night Football. So we are just about there, and like you said, it's getting more exciting every week that goes. So thank you guys as always for listening to Chasing 69, a New York Jets podcast. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at NYJ_Chasing69. Same with the YouTube page, Teddy at Teddy Huncho. I'm at Blake Andrew Pace. We started off somber. We're finishing strong. We're excited. Let's go play some motherfucking football this weekend. We'll talk to you guys next week. Peace.